Let me ask you something uncomfortable. Why do two people with the same education, the same resources, and the same opportunities end up with completely different lives? One feels stuck, frustrated, and exhausted. The other feels driven, fulfilled, and unstoppable. The difference isn't luck. It isn't talent. It isn't intelligence. The difference is how they see the world before they act in it. Change that lens, and your life doesn't change slowly. It changes immediately. Most people spend their entire lives focused on action. What should I do next? Which skill should I learn? Which opportunity should I chase? They believe that if they just do more, hustle harder, and stay busy long enough, clarity will magically appear. But action without belief is like running fast in the wrong direction. You may feel exhausted, but you won't feel fulfilled. The real shift happens when you reverse the order. When you decide what you believe before you decide your beliefs are the invisible force behind every decision you make. They quietly answer questions you don't even realize you're asking. Am I the kind of person who finishes what they start? Do I believe my time has value? Do I believe failure is a lesson or a verdict? Long before action shows up on the outside, belief has already shaped the outcome on the inside. That's why two people can take the same action and get completely different results, because their beliefs are different. When belief comes first, action gains direction. You stop reacting and start choosing. Instead of chasing every opportunity, you commit to the ones that align with who you are and what you stand for. This creates a sense of inner alignment. Life no longer feels like a constant struggle to keep up. It feels intentional. Purpose turns effort into energy. Without it, even success feels empty. Many people confuse motivation with belief. Motivation is emotional and temporary. Belief is structural and permanent. Motivation says, I feel like doing this today. Belief says, this is who I am regardless of how I feel. That distinction changes everything. When belief is clear, you don't need to be motivated every day. You simply act in accordance with your identity. The question shifts from, do I feel like doing this, to, is this consistent with who I am? Starting with belief also builds resilience. When challenges arise, and they always do, people who are driven only by action quit easily. They see obstacles as signs to stop, but people who are grounded in belief see obstacles as part of the process. Their belief gives context to pain. They don't ask, why is this happening to me? They ask, what is this preparing me for? That mindset alone can keep someone moving forward when others give up. Belief also simplifies decision-making. When you know what you stand for, many choices make themselves. You stop negotiating with distractions. You stop explaining yourself to everyone. You stop seeking constant approval. Clarity replaces chaos. And clarity doesn't come from doing more. It comes from understanding why you are doing anything at all. The most powerful transformations don't begin with a new routine or a new strategy. They begin with a quiet internal decision. This is what I believe about myself, about my future, and about what matters. From that moment on, action stops feeling forced. It becomes an expression of belief. And when belief leads, progress is no longer accidental, it's inevitable. Most people misunderstand responsibility. They hear the word and immediately think of blame, guilt, or punishment. They think taking responsibility means accepting that everything is their fault, so they avoid it. They point outward instead, at circumstances, at people, at timing, at luck. And in doing so, they unknowingly give away the very thing they want most, control over their own life. True responsibility is not about fault. It is about power. The moment you realize that responsibility is the ability to respond, something shifts internally. You stop asking who caused the problem, start asking what you can do about it. This mindset changes how you experience challenges. Instead of feeling trapped by situations, you begin to see options. Even when circumstances are unfair, even when outcomes are disappointing, the belief that your response matters keeps you in motion. Power doesn't come from controlling everything that happens to you. It comes from choosing how you respond to anything that happens. People who avoid responsibility often believe they are protecting themselves emotionally. In reality, they are shrinking their influence. When you say, this happened because of them, you may feel relieved for a moment, but you also declare yourself powerless. You put your future in someone else's hands. Responsibility does the opposite. It says, this is mine to deal with. And that statement, while uncomfortable, is incredibly freeing, because if it's yours to deal with, it's also yours to change. Taking responsibility also builds self-trust. Every time you face a situation, choose a thoughtful response instead of a reaction, you strengthen your inner confidence. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of life and start seeing yourself as a participant in it. This doesn't mean life becomes easy. It means you become stronger. And strength is far more valuable than comfort. There is also a deep connection between responsibility and growth. Growth requires ownership. You cannot improve something you refuse to own. If you blame your environment, your past, or other people for where you are, you close the door to learning. But when you say, I played a role in this, and I can play a role in what comes next, learning becomes possible. Responsibility turns mistakes into lessons instead of labels. Many people wait for external permission to change their lives. They wait for circumstances to improve, for people to behave differently, for confidence to appear. Responsibility removes the waiting. It says action can begin now, regardless of conditions. Even small acts of ownership, choosing better habits, having honest conversations, setting boundaries, compound over time into massive change. Responsibility is not heavy when you understand it correctly. It is not a burden placed on your shoulders. It is a key placed in your hand. The moment you accept it, you unlock choice. And where there is choice, there is freedom. Most people spend their lives chasing confidence, believing that once they feel confident, they will finally act. They wait for certainty before they move, for reassurance before they decide, and for approval before they commit. What they don't realize is that confidence is fragile. It rises and falls with mood, feedback, and circumstances. Clarity, on the other hand, is stable. It doesn't depend on how you feel in the moment. It depends on what you know about yourself and what you stand for. Clarity begins with honest self-awareness. It requires you to slow down long enough to ask difficult questions. What matters to me? What do I believe is worth my time and energy? What kind of person do I refuse to become, no matter the reward? These questions are uncomfortable because they force you to confront trade-offs. But without answering them, life becomes a series of reactions. You say yes to things you don't believe in and no to things that could change you, simply because you're unsure. When you lack clarity, every decision feels heavy. You overthink, second guess, and seek validation from others. Fear grows in the space where clarity should be, not because you are incapable, but because you don't have a clear internal compass. This is why confusion often feels like anxiety. Your mind is working overtime trying to protect you from making the wrong choice. Clarity calms that noise. It simplifies complexity. Once you are clear on your values and direction, many decisions stop feeling like risks and start feeling like commitments. Clarity also creates a different kind of courage. Confidence says, I believe I can succeed. Clarity says, even if I fail, this is still worth doing. That difference is powerful. When your courage is tied to confidence, it disappears at the first sign of difficulty. When T is tied to clarity, it endures. You continue moving forward not because you feel strong, but because you know why you started. People who are clear don't need to be loud. They don't rush to prove themselves. They don't change direction. Every time someone disagrees with them, their sense of self is rooted internally, not borrowed from external validation. This makes them consistent. And consistency is what builds trust with others and with themselves. Over time, that trust looks like confidence from the outside, but it was never the starting point. Clarity also protects you from distraction. In a world full of noise, opportunities, and opinions, it's easy to confuse movement with progress. Clarity acts as a filter. It helps you recognize what aligns with your direction and what doesn't. You stop chasing every possibility and start committing to the right ones. Energy that was once scattered becomes focused. When you stop waiting to feel confident and start seeking clarity instead, action becomes easier. You don't need perfect conditions or constant reassurance. You move because your direction is clear, and that clarity quietly becomes the foundation for everything else you build. Most people think discipline is about force, about pushing yourself when you don't feel like it, about strict rules, punishment, or denying yourself pleasure. Because of this misunderstanding, discipline feels heavy and exhausting, something to avoid rather than embrace. But real discipline is not rooted in pressure. It is rooted in respect, specifically respect for yourself and the future you say you want. Every promise you make to yourself is a statement of identity. When you keep that promise, even in small ways, you reinforce the belief that you are reliable. When you break it, you quietly teach yourself that your words don't matter. Over time, this internal relationship shapes your confidence more than any external success ever could. Discipline is not about perfection. It is about consistency. It is the daily act of honoring your own commitments, especially when no one else is watching. Self-respect grows through these quiet moments, waking up when you said you would, finishing what you started, choosing the long-term benefit over short-term comfort. These actions may seem insignificant on their own, but they compound. Each disciplined choice strengthens your trust in yourself. And when you trust yourself, you move through life with a different posture. You stop negotiating with excuses. You stop relying on motivation. You act because it aligns with who you are. Many people wait to feel inspired before they take action. Discipline works in the opposite direction. Action comes first and emotion follows. You don't become disciplined because you feel strong. You feel strong because you practice discipline. This is why disciplined people often appear calm under pressure. They have trained themselves to act independently of mood. Their behavior is guided by values, not emotions. Discipline also creates freedom, not restriction. Without it, life becomes reactive. Your schedule controls you. Your impulses control you. Your environment controls you. Discipline gives you choice. It allows you to design your days instead of drifting through them. The more disciplined you are with your time, energy, and focus, the more freedom you gain to pursue what truly matters. There's also a deep connection between discipline and dignity. When you consistently show up for yourself, you stop seeking validation from others. You don't need constant encouragement because your standards are internal. You know what you expect from yourself, and you work to meet that expectation daily. This creates quiet confidence. Not the loud kind that needs attention, but the steady kind that earns respect. Discipline is not about being harsh with yourself. It is about being honest. Honest about your goals, your limits, and your potential. It is choosing growth over comfort, repeatedly, even when it's inconvenient. And over time, that choice shapes not just your habits, but your character. Most people are taught to focus on results. From a young age, we are praised for outcomes, grades, awards, money, titles, numbers. Over time, this trains us to believe that success is something external, something to be chased and displayed. The problem with this way of thinking is that results are unstable. They change with circumstances, markets, timing, and luck. When your sense of worth is tied to results, your emotional state rises and falls with things you cannot fully control. When you focus only on results, you live in a constant state of pressure. You ask yourself, did I win? Did I get enough? Was it worth it? Even when you succeed, the satisfaction is brief because the next result is always waiting. This creates anxiety, comparison, and burnout. Chasing outcomes keeps you running, but it rarely makes you feel grounded. Identity, on the other hand, changes the game entirely. Identity is about deciding who you are, not what you get. It is a commitment to certain standards of behavior regardless of external reward. When you say, I am the kind of person who shows up, or I am the kind of person who tells the truth, you remove the dependence on immediate results. Your actions become expressions of who you are, not transactions for validation. This creates stability. Even on difficult days, you can act with integrity because your identity does not change with circumstances. When identity comes first, results become a byproduct rather than the goal. You don't ask, will this pay off today? You ask, is this consistent with the person I'm becoming? That question leads to better long-term decisions. It keeps you doing the right thing even when no one is watching, even when progress is slow, even when recognition is absent. Over time, those identity-based actions compound into meaningful results, but they arrive naturally without desperation. Building identity also creates resilience. When failure happens, and it always does, people who are attached to results feel broken. They see failure as a reflection of their worth. People grounded in identity see failure as feedback. Their sense of self remains intact, which allows them to learn and continue. They don't quit because an outcome didn't go their way. They adjust because quitting would violate who they believe they are. There is a quiet confidence that comes from identity-driven living. You stop comparing your timeline to others. You stop chasing shortcuts. You stop pretending. Instead, you focus on becoming consistent, reliable, and honest with yourself. This kind of confidence doesn't need applause. It grows internally, built on repeated alignment between belief and action. Results will always matter, but they should never be the foundation. When identity is the foundation, results have something solid to stand on. And in the long run, that stability is what allows success to last. Most people live trapped in the present moment, not because they are mindful, but because they are short-sighted. They make decisions based on what feels good now, what is easy now, or what relieves discomfort now. This way of thinking offers instant comfort, but it quietly steals the future. Long-term thinking requires you to see beyond immediate emotions and imagine the consequences of today's choices before they arrive. And that ability alone separates those who struggle constantly from those who build lasting success. When you think long-term, your priorities shift. You stop asking, what do I want right now? and start asking, what will I be grateful for later? This changes how you spend your time, how you manage your energy, and how you handle temptation. Short-term thinking seeks relief. Long-term thinking seeks alignment. One avoids pain, the other accepts temporary discomfort for lasting gain. That willingness to delay gratification is not weakness, it is discipline guided by vision. Many people believe patience means waiting. In reality, patience is active. It is the ability to continue doing the right thing, even when results are invisible. Long-term thinkers understand that progress is often silent before it is obvious. They don't quit because they don't see immediate rewards. They trust the process because they trust the direction. This mindset protects them from frustration and impulsive decisions that derail growth. Long-term thinking also builds emotional stability. When your focus is only on today, every setback feels catastrophic. A bad day feels like a bad life. A small failure feels final. But when you see life as a longer journey, individual moments lose their power to define you. You become less reactive and more strategic. You stop over-celebrating wins and over-suffering losses because you understand that both are temporary. This mindset influences how you handle relationships, finances, health, and personal growth. You invest in conversations instead of arguments. You save consistently instead of spending impulsively. You choose habits that compound instead of habits that entertain. None of these choices feel dramatic in the moment, but together they create momentum. Long-term thinking turns small, boring decisions into extraordinary outcomes over time. It also frees you from comparison. When you measure success only in the short term, you constantly feel behind. Someone else always seems ahead of you. Long-term thinkers understand that everyone is running a different race with a different timeline. They focus on sustainability rather than speed. They would rather move forward slowly in the right direction than sprint in the wrong one. Long-term thinking is not about sacrificing joy today for misery tomorrow. It is about choosing a deeper form of satisfactio, and one that comes from progress, purpose, and peace of mind. It allows you to build a life that doesn't just look good in moments, but works over decades. Most people underestimate the influence of their mindset, believing it is something personal and contained, something that affects only their own thoughts and emotions. In reality, mindset spreads. It shows up in tone, behavior, reactions, and decisions. Long before you speak about what you believe, people feel it. This is why mindset is contagious. Whether you intend it or not, the way you see the world shapes the atmosphere around you. When your mindset is rooted in clarity and purpose, it creates a sense of stability that others are drawn to. People trust those who are consistent, not those who are perfect. Consistency in attitude, values, and behavior signals reliability. When challenges arise, your response sets a tone. Calm creates calm. Panic creates panic. Your mindset becomes a reference point for others. Especially in moments of uncertainty, this influence is not limited to leadership roles or large audiences. It begins in everyday interactions. In families, teams, friendships, and workplaces, one person's mindset can shift the emotional direction of the entire group. A person who takes responsibility instead of blaming, who focuses on solutions instead of complaints, quietly raises the standard for everyone else. Without forcing change, they model it. Negative mindsets are just as contagious. Complaining spreads faster than optimism. Fear spreads faster than confidence. When you consistently speak from frustration, doubt, or cynicism, you normalize those emotions for others. Over time, they become part of the culture. This is why choosing your mindset is not just a personal decision. It is an ethical one. You are constantly teaching people how to think, not through words, but through behavior. People don't follow enthusiasm alone. They follow belief that holds steady under pressure. When someone sees you remain grounded during difficulty, they don't just admire it, they mirror it. Your mindset gives others permission to respond differently to their own challenges. This is how influence works at its deepest level, not by control, but by example. Being intentional about your mindset also protects you. You begin to recognize environments that drain you and attitudes that pull you backward. You become more selective about what you allow to shape your thinking because you understand the ripple effect. Protecting your mindset is not selfish, it is responsible. You cannot contribute clarity if you are constantly absorbing confusion. When you choose a mindset built on purpose, ownership, and long-term thinking, you become a stabilizing force. People may not always agree with you, but they will feel your presence. Over time, that presence becomes leadership. Regardless of title, and leadership born from mindset lasts longer than leadership built on authority or noise. The real transformation this mindset offers is not loud or dramatic, but deep and immediate. It begins the moment you stop living on autopilot and start living with intention. When belief leads action, responsibility replaces blame, and clarity replaces confusion, life no longer feels like something that happens to you. It becomes something you actively shape. You stop waiting for the perfect moment, the right mood, or external permission. You realize that direction matters more than speed, and meaning matters more than comfort. That realization alone changes how you wake up each day. As discipline replaces excuses and identity replaces obsession with results, your inner world becomes stable. You are no longer dependent on praise to feel valuable or success to feel worthy. You begin to trust yourself because your actions match your values. This alignment creates a quiet confidence that doesn't need to be announced. Even when progress is slow, you keep moving because quitting would no longer make sense. You are not chasing motivation anymore. You are living from commitment. When long-term thinking becomes your default, pressure loosens its grip. You stop panicking over temporary setbacks and stop rushing decisions that shape your future. You understand that small choices made consistently carry more power than dramatic changes made once. This patience allows you to build a life that lasts, not one that merely looks good from the outside. You become less reactive, more strategic, and more at peace with the process. And finally, as your mindset strengthens, its impact extends beyond you. The way you think, respond, and choose begins to influence others, your family, your work, your environment. Without forcing change, you become proof that a different way of living is possible. This is how real influence is created, not through noise or control, but through clarity, consistency, and belief. Change the mindset and everything connected to you starts to change with it. Thank you for taking the time to watch and stay with this message till the end. Your attention, your energy, and your willing SS to reflect on your mindset truly matter. If even one idea from this speech made you pause, think, or see your life a little differently, then this time was well spent. If this message added value to your life, don't forget to like the video and share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Your support helps this message reach more people who are searching for clarity, purpose, and direction. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss future content designed to challenge your thinking and help you grow consistently. Until next time, stay focused, stay intentional, and keep choosing the mindset that moves you forward. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.